Okay, this is something I'm really excited to share. I've been working on this in various ways over the last 10 years, I guess. One of my passions has been figuring out how to break down styles of singing so that it's such an abstract world to try to talk about voice sometimes. And I've been working hard on, over the many years, of breaking down and teaching people how to sing different styles of singing. And I'm excited with this new tool that I've come up with to both help teachers and students for learning how to sing different styles. So let's turn right to the controls and let me show you how this thing works, okay? This is the Selfless Art of Singing vocal style control dashboard, all right? And I'm going to, in this video, demonstrate how it works with 4 male singers, breaking down very different tone qualities, very different styles. We've got this indie, we're going to do an indie artist, the Dirty Projectors. We're going to check out Pavarotti singing Nessun Dorma. We'll check out Van Morrison and singing Moondance. And we'll also check out LaMontagne. All right, and so there's hundreds of different ways people could pick out, but I just picked 4 with some pretty different tone qualities. Okay, so let's get right to it. All right, I'm going to start with LaMontagne and show you how this works. So let's listen to a little bit of Ray first. So what we're doing right now is we're analyzing. I'm going to show you, listen to his sound, listen to the way he's singing, and I'm going to show you what he's doing based on the vocal style controls. Okay, so here we go. That's enough. Now, let's go over to the controls here, and I want to show you how this works, all right? Each of these controls make up what have come to me over the years as the primary things to look at when talking about different styles of singing so that you can understand what makes up different styles of singing, okay? So here we go. Let's first look at the top left corner. We have vocal fold closure. How is his vocal fold closure in that singing? Vocal fold closure is like, my chords are closed, now they're open, and if I make a sound that's got a lot of hissy air in the singing, then that's a more open vocal fold sound. If I'm singing more contained, that's a more closed vocal fold sound. He's got a pretty open vocal fold sound, right? Check that out, listen. Yeah, my soul. He's using a lot of air. There's a lot of air coming through his fold, so we're going to turn that up pretty high, all right? How about compression? Compression is it's that sound, it almost sounds like, I won't even say what that sounds like. But what compression is technically is right above the larynx. The hole in the back, above the larynx is called the pharynx. And when you sing with compression, you're narrowing the tube above the larynx, which creates a secondary pressure buildup, which creates a little edginess to the sound. Classical singers don't have compression as much. Contemporary do. So his voice has a real sort of high on the compression scale. So we're going to move that up pretty high. Okay. How about his articulation? Somebody if we're articulate, it's like proper crisp choral diction. Every T is pronounced clearly. The opposite of that would be more colloquial, conversational. Well, it just will not. You know, the way somebody might be talking in a natural conversation without a lot of focus on being clearly understood. He's got a very conversational style articulation. He's not like a choral singer or anything like that. Like crisp choral diction, he's much more natural. Vibrato, how about vibrato? Does he have any vibrato in his singing at all? Let's see. That's a little bit there. Oh. Let's keep listening. All right, so not a lot of vibrato. At the end of long-held notes and phrases, mostly a little bit at the end of the phrase, right? So we're going to say that he does have vibrato. We're just going to set this dial because it is a movable thing. We're going to put it on the lower side. He's kind of over here. Now, what about vocal fry? Now, this is something we want to look at with him. You know, the thing is, even though he's got this real husky sound. He's not using a ton of he's not really frying into a lot of it. I bet you if we go through, we'll find a couple of them there. But he's pretty consistently hitting that huskiness. And that huskiness is caused by open vocal folds with a lot of compression. A lot of squeeze above the larynx, but you're letting a lot of air through. So that's what he's doing. Now, vocal fry, so he's pretty low on the vocal fry, even though we probably will hear some there, okay? Let's go down to larynx position, this one. If this dial's set over here, it's more... it's like the larynx is staying in the same position the whole time. When you go high. And pop, yeah, the larynx goes up when you go high, down when you go low. And so he's definitely more in the movable larynx. His larynx is going up when he goes high, down when he goes low. This mix dial is something that changes for everyone throughout every song, moment by moment, typically, although not always. So when we talk about this mix dial, I'm kind of averaging, doing a general average of this way of singing. And a thickened vocal posture is going to be really, it's going to be pressed. It's going to be like a high pressure event in the singing. Now, and it's going to require the more muscularization of the vocalis muscle. Thin vocal posture is lighter. It's more toward falsetto. That's a lighter vocal posture. So where is he in regard to those two things? Well, I'm going to put him kind of in the middle because he does have a little bit of falsetto-iness that he comes into sometimes. And he also does get full voice. So that's kind of where I'd put that right now. He's really in the middle there as an average. Now throughout the song it's going to be that phrase was more muscularized, this phrase was lighter. But in general, this isn't like a belting, hello my baby, this isn't like a big brassy belty song. We can say that's what this song is a lot like because it's got different dynamic variations. Vowels. His vowels are very contemporary and wide. A tall vowel is like like a more classical. The ahs are not as bright. Everything's not This is very contemporary. Classical's a little taller, okay? And of course there are variations within even classical singers and contemporary singers as far as the amount of their wideness of vowels and the amount of tallness of their vowels as well. Okay, so I would put his vowels very wide. Trouble worries been dogging my. He's not my, he's my. Okay? Breath support. He is about a medium energy, when he gets to the chorus he adds more gas, but he's not super energetic relative in the world of singing here, in this style of singing, certainly in the verse. Okay? Let's go up to ornamentation. Is he more jazz croony? Is he more pop riffy? And does he have grit growl? Now he definitely has, let's see, which button is that? Yeah. He's got the pop riffing thing going on for sure. Like, it's that sliding, very angular under the note and then sliding up to it. And he doesn't have, I've got you. He's not doing this crooning into notes. Although in the chorus, he struggles with the high note. He kind of slides into it. It wasn't out of a jazz ornamentation. It was out of, I think, issues with vocal technique in this video in particular. But we're not going to go into that today. Now, does he have grit and growl in his voice? He kind of does sometimes. Yeah, the grit and growl in that button, what I'm talking about, is using... a growl is the vibrating of, I was just talking about this we were joking on Facebook with this amazing video that came out talking about this. Growl is the vibration of other stuff inside it. I just won't get into it, but there's other things other than the vocal folds vibrating to give that to grit growl sound, and he does use that some in this style. What are his high notes like? Now this is how we recognize high notes over here. His high notes are not in a passaggio, like Pavarotti's are going to be, where they go into this operatic up and over type of sound. They're in what I call the contemporary full voice posture, which is it's like the larynx goes up, so it keeps it continues to get thinner and brighter as you go higher, instead of going into that operatic gear shift where it goes up and over in the back like Pavarotti does. Okay, so there you go. Not a lot of vocal fold closure in his singing. High compression, very low articulation, not a lot of vibrato. Vocal fry, not as much. Although I'm sure he does have some if we went through and really analyze it. Pop riffing style, grit growl. Contemporary high notes. His larynx position is in the movable larynx position, which is more of a contemporary. His about 50-50 on his mixing as far as thickened versus thin, and his vowels are contemporary. Okay, All right, so there's that. Now let's compare him to another singer who's not that far off stylistically. I mean, relatively speaking. Let's check out some Van Morrison. Already notice the difference in his tone quality. It's a marvelous night. When you're right. Okay, good. Here we go. That's enough. Now, how is he different from Ray LaMontagne? Let's check that out. Ray LaMontagne's like, very husky, breathy. Van Morrison's got a lot of clean vocal fold closure in his singing. It's a marvelous night, or whatever key we're in. He's got the, it's a marvelous night for a, he's got a lot of containment. The vocal folds aren't, it's a marvelous, he's not doing that like the Ray LaMontagne tone he had there, okay? So we're going to say his vocal fold closure is pretty close, all right? Now, what about his compression? Now, he does have compression. He's not like, it's a marvelous night for a moon dance. It just doesn't sound like this easy talking voice. It's a marvelous night. There's still that squeezy thing going on. But it's just not, he's not doing it with open vocal folds. It's a marvelous night. He's got this clean closure, all right? So I would say in this, his compression is still pretty high, maybe even as high as Ray LaMontagne. He just doesn't have the open vocal folds to go with it, all right? Next, let's look at his articulation. I'd say his articulation is pretty similar to Ray LaMontagne's. He's not properly pronouncing everything. It's the stars up above in your... He's kind of mumbly a little bit. Stars up above in your eyes. He's not being as articulate, although we can understand him, right? So his articulation, maybe he's a little less mumbly than Ray LaMontagne, less articulate. Or maybe he's a little more articulate than Ray LaMontagne. Vibrato. I'm not hearing a whole lot of vibrato at all in this first part of the song, are we? There's been no vibrato so far, but I bet you we get into the chorus, can I just have one more? I bet we'll get a little wiggle or two of vibrato at the end of his long-held notes and phrases. So we're going to take that vibrato and put it down. I'd say even Ray LaMontagne had a little more vibrato than he did. Now let's look at vocal fry. Are we hearing any vocal fry, or are we hearing pretty clean onsets? Is there are we hearing that? Now I'm not hearing a whole lot of Britney Spears style. Although it wouldn't be weird to hear a little bit in there, but he's not using a whole lot there. So we're going to put the vocal fry pretty low on him, okay? Now, what about larynx position? I'll say right now, he's still in that contemporary larynx position where it goes up when you go high and moves down when you go low. He now is in a little bit more, now if we go to mix, he's in a little bit more of a thickened vocal posture than Ray LaMontagne was. Like, there's more gas. He's using more gas in his singing. It's a marvelous. There's more thickenedness. There's more vocal fold closure, which we talked about here. So he's got more thickenedness in his voice, right? More vocal fold closure. His vowels are still, it's a more. He's not tall and classical. They're very lateral and contemporary. His breath support, he's got much more breath support than Ray LaMontagne does. And over here, when we think about ornamentation, you know, he does have the, the pop, the slamming into and out of notes. But the thing is, he almost has a little bit of that crooning jazz. There, so I would actually put probably both of those buttons down. He's got a little bit of both going on there. Not a whole lot of growl in his sound, though. He's not like adding that Tom Waits style growl in his voice. His high notes are definitely in that contemporary. It's like a high energy, not operatic sound, and it's also not falsetto. He's using more of that contemporary powered high voice. Okay, so that's Van Morrison versus Ray LaMontagne. Now let's switch over to another contemporary singer before we do the opera. This is lead singer. I don't even know the name. I'll have to put that in the comments. Lead singer for the Dirty Projectors here. Let's check out some of his singing, okay?
all the way down. And what hits the spot, yeah, like gathering you, baby.
Okay, so already we're hearing some falsetto using. So we're going to turn on that falsetto button right away. Which one is it? There we go. Definitely using falsetto. And as you go on, you're going to find that he's also using the contemporary high energy posture in his singing as well. Now this is definitely a different tone than the LaMontagne that we heard, and also a different tone than the Van Morrison. What's he doing there? Well, let's apply it. Let's use this the controls. He doesn't have. Is his voice more breathy, like airflowy, like LaMontagne, or is it more contained, like Van Morrison?
Feel it all the way.
He's got some airflow in there. Yeah. He's got a more airflowy sound than Van Morrison. Maybe not as husky, or maybe not as airflowy or vocal fold open as LaMontagne, but he's somewhere in the middle. So I'd put him like, he's not, it's a marvelous night, or he's not, trouble, he's not way over here. He's kind of somewhere in the middle, right? How about compression? Now, listen.
And what hits the spot?
He definitely doesn't sound like as free from compression as somebody would when they're talking. Yes, I'm talking, la la. I'm just talking and I have no compression in my voice. Now when I turn it on, now I've got a little more squeeze. Yeah. He does have compression, even though he's got this airflowy tone, and there is still a little squeeze, which makes it sound like that pop rock. Yeah, the squeeze. It's not, like completely loose in the compression area. Articulation. He's also very low on the articulation. Although I would say, because I have listened to him a bit, I would say he's a little bit more articulate in the way he pronounces his T's and all of his words than you're going to hear with LaMontagne. Or you're going to hear with Van Morrison. So I'm going to put his articulation up a little bit higher than those guys. We'll listen a little more.
Yeah, I live in a greenhouse and I am getting.
There's some vibrato, right? He sings with a little more vibrato than both of those guys do in general. And I'm not going through and playing the whole thing, but if you listen, you'll see that he sings with a little more. Not a lot, just there's a little more vibrato that comes into his tone over his singing. Now, do we hear any vocal fry?
Ain't wasted yet. Temperature rise.
There's not a lot of vocal fry in his onsets. He has a lot of airflow in his onset. So we're going to keep that down as a clean onset or a non-vocal fry onset. He's very easy at the onset. Okay. Now his singing style is definitely more in the hitting under a note and then sliding into the notes you're going for. So his singing is much more of the pop riffing style of high note. His larynx position is also going to be in the more contemporary, just like the other two. It goes up when he goes high, down when he goes low. Mixing, he's not as thickened or pressed in his singing, at least in this part for sure, as Van Morrison was. He's a little more energetically, I'd say, in the LaMontagne department, although his dial swings over here to falsetto a lot. It'll be like, let I hear, and then, no, come back. Like he's doing that kind of a thing. In and out of his falsetto. So his dial's swinging quite a bit here. Vowels, his vowels are lateral. It's very not aw in the way you hear those. Breath support, he's a really light energy here in his singing, which is what's needed for that falsetto mixing sound. So there you go. So that's a difference there. That's a way that you can break down these styles of singing between three different male contemporary singers. Now let's move to Pavarotti. This is a complete gear switch here. All right, let me take off these buttons. So let's start off with a little Nessun Dorma. And what's the differences we're hearing already? here's one. Vibrato is all the almost every note. Right? Now, so does he have a lot of vocal fold closure? Oh yeah. Oh, there's not a whole lot of air escaping excessively through that tone. Yeah, it's a very clean, very contained sound, which for opera is important because that when you get a clean vocal fold closure, you're maximizing your overtones and your resonance. And for male opera singers, that's the name of the game, because when you hit the singer's formant, which is that resonant part of the classical voice when it's placed, that's what cuts through the orchestra. So he's got lots of clean vocal fold closure. How about compression? Does he sound, does he have that squeezy, yeah, cool guy voice going on in his singing? Like Van Morrison and LaMontagne? Nope. Nope. His voice is better. There's his voice is free. There's not that, it's a marvelous. He doesn't have that squeezy type of sound. Very low compression. How about articulation? Yep, I'm hearing all of those consonants there. Oh, even though in opera there is this whole world of how articulate or how intelligible are singers, or should they be, you know, but I will say that regardless of your level of intelligibility wanted as an opera singer, or that whole debate, it's pretty universal that we want to hear all those consonants. You know, we want to hear the pronounced clearly and crisply, and so he has very high level of articulation and clarity of diction. His vibrato, we said already, is almost full throttle all the time. Not a lot of vocal fry you're going to hear in opera in general. Vocal fry da will always be down in opera just about. So, whoops, let me turn that down. Larynx position. Now, his larynx, when he's singing, is in the more neutral larynx position. It means when you go high and you go low, it just kind of still stays floating in the same place the whole time. So his larynx is over in neutral position. His mix, he has in this particular singing, although not always, he has a relatively higher amount of thickenedness in his vocal posture as he's singing, as opposed to falsetto. And he does have some arias that he sings that are much more floaty. But you know, when we think about opera, we're thinking about pumping out quite a bit of sound, anywhere from a 500 to 3,500 almost seat opera house that you're singing in. So there's going to be a lot more thickenedness in general in real opera. So he's singing pretty high thickenedness. His vowels, even though he's Italian, and even though Italian has bright vowels, and even though he's a tenor, and tenors sing, you know, bright in their upper voice, I'm still going to say that his vowels are more in the tall classical posture. So where is he on the breath support? On breath support, he's got a lot of energy. There's a relative to the other styles of singing, there's quite a bit of breath support, a breath power, air pressure in his instrument compared to the LaMontagne, compared to even the Van Morrison, although Van Morrison had more than the other two. Okay, what about his ornamentation? That really doesn't apply to him here. Let's look, because that's more for the contemporary styles. Let's look at his upper register. He is very much in the passaggio style of the upper register. When he goes high, because that larynx stays neutral, that sound flips into a whole different department. It goes back and over, and it's a whole different resonance. Let's see if we can get to that. Right there. So that's passaggio, that vincero. He didn't say vincero. He didn't like, yeah. He didn't. That's what a lot of the vowel modification that happens in contemporary music. When you go high, yeah, the vowels keep spreading in that range. In classical, like they cover. Vincero. Notice how he did that. Yep. Right there, that's passaggio. That's passaggio. And that top one is what I call square mouth position. That's different than that covered passaggio. When both contemporary and classical voices get to that place, they pretty much start doing the same thing. No, you don't have very limited options the higher you go, you know, no matter what style you're in. Okay, so there you go. That's just an introduction. I'll do lots more videos breaking down each of the dials specifically so you can understand them better, and also a whole bunch of exercises on learning how to control them. So one last thing to keep in mind, one more thing I want to say about this is that, you know, these controls and dials are specific for how to really break down different styles of singing. However, there are lots of coordinations that are not up here that you are kind of universal to every style, like making sure that when you breathe in, you let your abdominal muscles drop out all the way every time. That doesn't change with any style. Singing in tune, that's something that we want to be able to do in every style. Understanding singing legato is something that we want to do in every style. So there and many other things. There are lots of other things that a singer needs to do other than learn how to control these dials on their singing. But once those foundational elements have fallen into place, and even sometimes as those foundational elements are being integrated, we can already start talking about and focusing on and learning these aspects of singing. Okay, so there you go. This is the vocal style controls introduction, and I hope that helps.